Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the PrimateCast. The release date for this podcast, which is number 44 in our series, is Friday, June the 10th, 2016. And today in the studio, I'm joined by Sofi Bernstein. Welcome back.
Hey, good to be back.
So why don't you tell everybody what we're going to be doing on this series?
All right, so for this episode, I'm really excited about it. I was able to invite my previous supervisors from Central Washington University to Japan for the PWS conference that we had in March, and I had a chance to catch up with them. It'd been a couple years. We met up in the field in China. We do some work at the Valley of the Wild Monkeys in Mount Wangshan. Mm-hmm. And just to give you a little background on this site, it's located next to a UNESCO World Heritage Area. It's a beautiful site. The Yellow Mountains, they say that you have to see the Yellow Mountains before you die in China. It's kind of part of being from growing up there. And so I'm really lucky that I get to work in a site like this. It's beautiful. It's open to tourists. There are several groups of Tibetan macaques there, and it's located right next to a village that's been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And we work very closely with the villagers to take care of the site together.
And as came out in the interview, it's not the first experiences that Kyoto University affiliated researchers had been there.
Mm-hmm. So long before my previous supervisors even went to this site, there were several professors from Kyoto University that went there. And there was actually a PhD student who did his doctorate work in the Valley of the Wild Monkeys and wrote a book called The Wily Monkeys. And that kind of introduced me to this site. So it's interesting that through it all, it just kind of led me back here to where he studied, and he worked on his PhD there, and I'm working on my PhD there too as a Kyoto University student. So it's fun.
Yeah, and it's really cool that you were able to actually invite them through the PWS platform to come to this symposium, which would happen to be your last.
It is, yeah. It's right towards the end. I was able to present to them all of the work that I've been doing during my doctorate to show them this. It's actually been a project we've been working on for many years now. It's been in development to create a vocal repertoire for this species. We've thought about it, dreamed about it for a while, and now from coming here, I've been able to actually put this project into realization. So it's really nice that they could be here to see it.
Yeah, and it was fun listening to you guys talk in the podcast that's coming up, because you obviously have some familiarity, and you obviously talked very highly, and I guess it reflects your thoughts on the Central Washington program.
Yeah, I had an amazing experience there, and I was so happy that I could continue to work with them, and I hope to in the future. So
once again, in this podcast, Dr. Steve Wagner, Dr. Lori Sheeran, Central Washington University. Here we go.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks,
Thank
Sophie.
you. Thank you. What a wonderful opportunity and what a wonderful conference we were just at. So we're glad to be here with you. So my name is Lori Sheeran, and so I've been studying primates in China since 1990. For my PhD dissertation, I studied gibbons in Western China. And after that, I worked for a while in the Cal State University system. And for the last 10 years, I've been working at Central Washington University, where I'm the director of the Primate Behavior and Ecology program.
And I'm Steve Wagner. I'm a professor in the biology department at Central Washington University. And originally I had no intention of studying primates. My background is in genetics, primarily amphibians, with an interest in threatened and endangered species. In about 2003, I had some conversations with Lori and some others that we envisioned having a field school where students could go internationally and really study sort of anything. And from that, we really started the field school in China, and I just became fascinated with watching monkeys.
Yeah, it's funny how sometimes you don't plan on working with primates, and it just kind of leads you there. It's a happy accident.
It's an addiction.
Yes.
It is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that this program that Lori and Steve are a part of is so unique in the United States. It's the only master's program that is specifically in primate behavior and ecology. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful, and that's what led me to going to Central, and I'm just so happy that I was able to bring them here to Japan and have a mini reunion.
Yes.
And actually at Central we have an undergraduate degree program in primate behavior and ecology, and then a master's program in primate behavior.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the undergraduate degree is the only one of its kind in the world, I think. And it attracts students from across the U.S. And then the master's program is gaining in popularity. And we've had our first international students the past couple years, so we'd really like to have more of that mix going on. So yeah, so we have about 50 students total, about 25 in the undergrad program, about 25 in the grad program. And we're trying to make sure students have opportunities to work with captive primates and with wild ones. So we have connections with a number of field sites, as well as with a few zoos and sanctuaries, so that they can get a full spectrum of experience. So, yeah.
That's so great. So, do you guys mind just telling me a little bit about the different topics that you've been able to cover while you've been in China with all your students?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for primates, more recently, some things that I've been interested in with primates is juvenile play behavior. For a long time, we studied adults and kind of just ignored juveniles. And one day I was watching the juveniles and thinking like, I think that we can identify these juveniles individually, and they're doing really interesting behaviors. They do as many complex behaviors as adults.
Ooh.
Plus, they spend a lot of time playing. So their development is really interesting. So I've had students study tourist, juvenile interactions, juvenile sexual behaviors for Tibetan macaques.
Yes, and as I mentioned, I've been working in China since 1990, and I started out with gibbons in Western China. I fell in love with the country and the animals there. The primates are amazing. But I was really more interested in social interactions, and gibbons just don't exhibit many of those behaviors, or they're kind of difficult to see. So I was excited to switch to Tibetan macaques, and they are all about social interactions. My students have also been studying tourist and monkey interactions because we work at a tourist site. But I would like to look over the longer term. I'm interested in maternal investment and how that changes across the female's life course. And we have some animals that become pretty old in our population because they're protected. So I have data from females for the past 10 years, and I can kind of see how they're changing their investment over time. So we plan to continue working with the Tibetan macaques in some of our future initiatives. We'll be looking at how to mitigate the effect that visitors are having on the monkeys. So we're looking at things like using apps and interactive activities, maybe having a different person every day volunteer to be the scientist for the day and to interface with the public, and see if we can kind of support the local people and help them with their livelihoods, but still protect the monkeys. So kind of walking that line between the local people's needs and what the monkeys need.
Yeah, I mean, it's so great that you cover so many topics from social behavior, but also some conservation initiatives, which is so vital to keeping this part going. Yeah, I feel as a scientist, it's my duty in a way, right, to kind of give back to my study subjects if I can. It's so nice that you have students that can do that, but also look at the longitudinal data and cover a wide array of topics and fields.
And that's what's good about the degree for primate behavior is it's a degree that's more of an interdisciplinary degree. So like Dr. Sheeran's in the anthropology department, I'm in the biology department, and kind of spans those two realms from doing some cultural anthropology type things with respect to conservation to more scientific. Like this summer we had a student that's looked at the diet of
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's great to have that combined expertise, because I can do something that focuses on the behavior, and then Steve can bring in the genetics component, which I couldn't do. So together we get a fuller picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
So
that's really what makes the work that you do at this site so special, is that you can look at it from many different fields. This multidisciplinary approach is so nice to have. But something that I've always wondered about is, how did you end up going to this exact site to visit the Tibetan macaques?
Originally we weren't going to go to this site.
No.
Originally I think we bought tickets to go to Nepal.
Really?
And there was an uprising, there was an insurgency. And then I think we were going to go to Panama. Something happened.
Yeah, this was before I
there.
came. Yeah, you
Yeah.
guys had
Wow.
tried several different.
Options, and then Dr. Lee, Jinhua Lee, who's done studies at this site for over 35 years. He was visiting scientists in the biology department, and we just had a meeting one day, and he was like, "Oh, I have this area with macaques and salamanders and frogs, and you can come.
Wow.
When do you want to come?" And we're like, "We will come this summer."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was in 2003.
Yeah, 2004 was when we went. Yeah.
Oh, 2004 is when we went. Yeah.
Yeah,
Incredible.
here it is, a UNESCO World Heritage Site for,
Mhm.
for biodiversity, so it's just extremely rich with biodiversity.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect place for a field school.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Can you take us and the listeners back to your first impressions of the site when you arrived? It must have been amazing. I know, like,
Yeah.
for me, like, when I first arrived, I was just,
yeah,
it was breathtaking. It's gorgeous. And just
it's
to
so
see them
beautiful.
like that is
Yeah.
just, yeah. So if you, please share with us your
Remember.
first impressions of
Well, I
Site.
remember when I studied gibbons in China, it took 2.5 weeks before I even had a sighting of a fleeing gibbon. So at the Valley of the Wild Monkeys, we walk up the stairs and there's monkeys everywhere.
Yeah.
And my knees almost buckled because I was like, oh my gosh, they're right here. And I'm going to be able to just spend the whole day surrounded by monkeys, which is my ideal day. So, and the landscape is just stunning.
I remember the stairs being really rickety at that time. There were
Really?
some really
Yeah.
rickety wooden stairs.
Yeah,
And we didn't have much experience with the monkeys. I remember a male like charging us
yeah,
and me slipping a little bit off the stairs,
yeah.
which now really wouldn't happen because we know
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
of
know
course.
how to act
About-
and
Yeah.
not antagonize them.
Right. Yeah, I
But
wanted
really,
social
it was a
behavior.
really beautiful spot. And in a way, before it was just a path to the village. Now there's a little road to the village, but it was just a path. So in a way, it was a little bit smaller and kind of quainter.
Yeah. That's so hard to imagine with the way that it is now.
Yeah, over the 10 years, it's amazing how tourism has developed in that area, and
Yeah.
the tourism has just crept up the mountain. And I am very worried actually about the future of the village, and they're really affecting the stream there, and there's just more and more people. And people are wanting to buy those beautiful condominiums that are up in the mountains, so they're
Right.
building further and further up.
So there's definitely a lot more encroachment now on the habitat
Yeah.
in the Valley of the Wild Monkeys.
Yeah, and that's what our site is. It's called the Valley of the Wild Monkeys, but it's part of the Wanchan Scenic District, this larger park. And really, the size of the park, to try to think about it, would be like going to Yosemite in the U.S. So it's on that scale of the size of the park, but we kind of work in a smaller little valley.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so, and I guess I should mention it in addition to, we have these experiences for students in working with captive primates and in the field, but we have an amazing curriculum in our program that I don't think you see anywhere else. So at the undergraduate level, we have 6 courses that are specifically devoted to primates. And then we have that interdisciplinary perspective. So students take courses in biology, psychology, and anthropology. So they're well grounded in evolutionary theory and ethnographic methods and things like that. And that perspective continues at the graduate level. So I remember as an aspiring primatologist thinking, I have one class in primates and that's about it,
Right.
you know. So to have all this smorgasbord of courses is really wonderful.
That's really what attracted me to Central. It was just, of course, I want to do a program where it's all primates all the time, and just the course load was just incredible. You can't find that anywhere else. It's so nice. It really is. And like you said, primatology needs to be multidisciplinary. So it's nice that students are they have the chance to go into biology, psychology, anthropology, and get a flavor for each of them as an undergrad, and then eventually decide what feels right for them or what they are more interested in. It's so nice.
Right. And we have this rich legacy from Dr. Roger Fouts was one of the founders of the undergraduate program. And so we've always had this tradition of non-invasive observational research. And I think that's a nice niche for us compared to places that have access to primate research facilities. We do a different kind of work, and the students appreciate that, and we've kind of continued on with that tradition. So,
yeah, I that's so incredible. Just that like the philosophy behind it and the ethics and doing completely non-invasive research is just, it's also one of a kind.
yeah, it's challenging,
sure.
but and it was interesting to hear the presentations during the time we've been here in Japan, talking about how you need to do observations in captive settings where you have a little bit more ability to design and experiment, and then natural experiments in the field, and combining that information is really important. So
definitely.
Yeah, and really having experiments where, if they're in the captive situation, where the primates have a choice about whether to do it or not do it.
right,
Yeah.
Not being coerced to do it.
right.
So what kinds of opportunities do students at Central have to go and study primates? Are there some areas that are close by that they can go and see them, that aren't too far away, they don't have to travel outside of the country?
right. Yeah, we benefit from this close relationship with Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest, which is about 20 minutes from campus. And right now they have 7 chimpanzees who were in biomedical research and are now living in sanctuary. And the staff there are wonderful. So our students do internships and learn about captive care. The director of the facility teaches a class for us. And we're starting to be able to do some research, although it's on a case-by-case basis and it has to benefit the chimps. But we're starting to be able to do projects there. And they're planning to expand with more chimpanzees in the next year, and perhaps include some monkeys in the future. So,
Really?
So I think that's going to be the perfect connection for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So, and we're working on a 1-year captive care certificate, and the staff at CSNW are critical to the teaching those skills and conducting the internships there. So, we used to have chimpanzees who lived on our campus, the most famous chimpanzee Washoe, and those chimpanzees were retired to sanctuary. And for a while there, the students really suffered from, they either had to drive 2 hours to Seattle or make some other arrangements. It was really hard to get to a place that had primates, but CSNW has stepped up and really filled in that gap for us. So,
that's great.
So almost every student, if not every student, had spent some time there.
So they can do some volunteer work as well.
Right.
That's great.
So,
And then the certificate program will be of interest of students that don't want to commit to getting a 2-year master's degree.
Right.
Maybe they have a degree or don't have a degree, because you'll be a non-matriculated student in order to get the certificate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so people who really want to go more into primate care or primate welfare might want to choose that track. So,
Oh, nice. Yeah, and they can have hands-on training right there at CSNW.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and we still have that connection to the chimpanzees who lived on our campus for so long. Lulis and Tatu are still alive, and they live at a sanctuary in Montreal, Fauna Foundation. And Dr. Mary Lee Jensvold left Central and went with the chimpanzees, of course. That's where her heart was going, so that's where her body went too. And they're doing really well in their new environment. So she's doing some research now that's looking at whether and how they're using their language abilities with the chimpanzees they live with now, who none of whom have that. So the research is continuing, and those chimpanzees are living a very good life, I think. Now, so Central still has a connection with Dr. Jensvold. She's still an adjunct professor with us.
Oh, okay.
And she usually accepts 1 or 2 graduate students a year to continue her work.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Right, because Dr. Fouts and Washoe really put the primate behavior program on the map there. It was so famous.
Yeah.
Central got a lot of recognition for that. It's nice that if students come across Central because of reading, his book or learning about Washoe, they can still carry on that legacy and look at those chimps and where they are now. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and so many people want to know what happened to the chimps.
Yeah.
How are they? But I think in the future, what we really want to do is to expand the species of primates that we cover. So we used to be very strongly chimpanzee focused, of course, because we had such famous personages on our campus. But now we want to make sure that students know about all primates and have opportunities to work with any of them. Yeah. So that's where we're headed next, I think.
Yeah, and we have opportunities for students if they wanted to work in Ecuador.
Right.
There's a sanctuary in Ecuador in Yanacocha, which you actually spent some time at, studying woolly monkeys.
Incredible.
There's other species where they are working on either enrichment for animals, or some of them are to be rehabilitated and released.
Yeah, I mean, just the incredible number of species they have at Yanacocha. There's woolies, pygmy marmosets, spider monkeys, just to name a few.
Squirrel monkeys.
Yeah, squirrel monkeys. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. So if we can go back to China for a second, I just want to briefly mention that I was able to go back there for my doctorate, and I wanted to continue the work with the Tibetan macaques because of my incredible experience that Central gave to me when I was a master's student. So I started looking at the vocalizations of this species, and I'm interested in looking at it from a multidisciplinary approach and collaborating with Lori and Steve some more. But also we have a great connection with Anhui University, and the longitudinal types of studies that we can do are thanks to the combined efforts between the universities. So my question to you is, what topics are next?
Currently with Bingwell's son, he's a PhD student at Anhui University. We've been doing some microbiome studies. As you know, there are more bacterial cells that make up your body than actual human cells. And that diversity we don't understand very well. We do know some things with humans, that if you cohabitate with other humans and pets, you begin to share some of your microbiome. But for primates in the wild, we don't really understand this very much. And also primates that come in contact with humans, what is the potential for a transference of bacteria, either among individual Tibetan macaques or macaques and humans. And we're just beginning to try to understand how their microbiome varies among individuals, how it varies seasonally. And then I really think the next step is trying to understand, is there transference of the microbiome to humans?
Right, because there's so much contact between the macaques and the tourists and the guards themselves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, us too.
Yeah, the primatologists.
Yeah.
So that's another place where we can collaborate really well, because I can provide some of the behavioral data that's looking at the points of contact between the people and the monkeys, or among the monkeys. Like, is there a matriline that shares more of a microbiome in common because they groom each other all the time and are in proximity all the time? Right. So it's a good collaboration. And it's been so amazing to be here in Japan. I was reflecting on this last night, that Kyoto University was there at the start of the Valley of the Wild Monkeys. So Drs. Wada and Ogawa worked with Anhui University to set up that site, and then we came in, and I had always known of Japan as the center of primatology, a place where it emerged as a discipline. So it's an honor to be here, and then just to have that connection to my own research site too. And now you're there again, and Mike Huffman, and so to have Kyoto involved directly again at the site would be wonderful. And I know our colleagues at Anhui would really love to strengthen that connection. So.
Yeah, it's really come full circle in a way.
Yeah.
And I know when I was, like you, I was so interested in Japanese primatology as like a hub of where it really developed. And when I first found out about China and the opportunity at Central, I was like, yes, of course I want to go to China and study Tibetan macaques. And then reading more about it and reading Ogawa's book, The Wily Monkeys, it's just amazing. And I, not in my wildest dreams did I think I was going to end up here, and going back and then kind of reestablishing that connection between Kyoto University and the Valley of the Wild Monkeys and Anhui University. So it's been an incredible ride. Definitely.
Yes. And that there's such a rich store of knowledge about macaques here in Japan that we could really benefit from that in China.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that comparison, especially because Japanese macaques are so diverse in their behaviors, even amongst the groups. I think when I visited Arashiyama,
Right.
I even saw juveniles engaging in some mounting behaviors that were pretty interesting.
It kind of made you think about what you see with the Tibet macaques, right?
Yeah, nobody really studies that for
Yeah,
juvenile
no.
macaques.
There's so much that needs to be done, and a comparative study would be incredible. Yeah, definitely. Well, we just finished wrapping up the PWS conference, and I wanted to hear from the two of you what your impressions are from the different talks that you've seen.
Since being here, I've reflected on your program as the director of another program. This program is amazing. The opportunities you have here are just unparalleled in my experience in the United States. So I'm so excited to see the quality of research that students are doing here and that close interaction that you have with your professor advisors.
Yeah.
And then almost every student I met had done some captive work, some field work in these amazing places where they have longitudinal records.
Yeah.
The chimpanzees at Basso. And so I think this is an amazing program. I really hope that it can continue on into the future because it's producing the cutting edge primatologists, as Japan always has. Just continuing, but you have this international mix that's really important to the vitality of the program. So it's just a wonderful place.
I was really impressed with the diversity of different topics that people are studying, and then the opportunity is really to do that comparative study that you can. If you're here at Kyoto, you can do comparative studies of chimpanzees, of bonobos, of gorillas, orangutan.
You can cover all the great apes if you want to.
Great apes, right? You can study vocalizations or parasite load. It's really quite an amazing place. If I had to go back and do it again, I wish I could come here, actually.
Yeah.
Well, Central definitely prepared me for coming here, and it wouldn't have been possible without all of the training and the opportunities that I had when I went to Central and did my master's. So I want to thank you both so much.
But you also have really good lunches here. So not only can you study primates, but every day at PRI you can have the best Japanese lunch.
I'm glad you like it.
That's definitely true. We cannot provide that.
Thank you both so much for everything, and it was my pleasure to invite you to Japan so we could have a reunion and talk about China, and you could talk about your research that you've been doing at the Valley of the Wild Monkeys at the recent PWS symposium. So thank you again so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You have been listening to the PrimateCast, a podcast series dedicated to the study and conservation of primates around the world. Brought to you by the Centre for International Collaboration and Advanced Studies in Primatology of the Primate Research Institute of Kyoto University. Visit us online at www.cisasp.pi.kyoto-uac.jp/news/podcasts and follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/theprimatecast and on Twitter at theprimatecast.